Please like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoy my content. Thank you. Can two narratives be correct in this instance with the Rayshard Brooks shooting? Yes. So let's go over real quick before I read these stories. 1. Shouldn't have been drinking and driving. That's just a fact. You endanger not only yourself, but the lives of many people on the street and in cars, etc. 2. He shouldn't have went to Wendy's and passed out in the drive-thru lane. Shouldn't have done that, but he did. 3. When the cops finally did show up, they gave him a breathalyzer, melted it probably. They said, okay, you're DUI, you're under arrest. He shouldn't have resisted arrest. Okay, that's 3. 4, he shouldn't have fought with the cops and then steal the taser gun off one of the utility belt the cops have. That's 4. 5, he shouldn't have shot the taser back at the cop, okay, and resulting in his death. Okay, there's 5 things he shouldn't have been doing. Okay, doesn't mean he deserves to die, but it looks bad for his case because what do you think's going to happen when you steal a cop's weapon off his belt? I mean, I don't know. Again, not a fan of cops, but it's almost weird to having to side with a cop right now. It's like, God dang, it's like, what was he supposed to do? All right. The other side, the cops, what did they do? They got called for service. They went over there and saw a guy sleep in his car. Probably smelled some alcohol. Maybe said, hey, you want to take a breathalyzer test? The guy, Rayshard Brooks, kind of was like, oh, fine. So he took it. And what happened? He resisted arrest. So what happens next is they try to subdue the guy. They weren't on his neck or anything like that. The guy actually, he's a big dude. And sometimes it takes more than one person to subdue a guy. Well, guy fought back, stole the taser gun off the belt, started running. Now, and he actually shot back at the cops too. So now, let's think about this for a second. Now, you know who this guy is by now. They probably got his license and registration. Took the license plate, ran into the system, find out what his name was. Now, the cops could have done one or two things. They could have done A, let him go and get him later. Risking the public with a guy with a taser that's already out of his mind, apparently, strong, and running through the neighborhood. Imagine if that guy hurt somebody, stole a car, killed somebody. Guess whose fault it is right there? The cops. Why don't you go after him? They can't win. And the other option was to shoot him after he shot the taser at him. Well, I hate to side with cops here, and I'm not really wanting to do that just yet. But I'm leaning towards that way, just because for the fact that the guy resisted arrest, doesn't require death at this point. Okay, stole his weapon off his belt. Well, it's just a less lethal taser. Yeah, maybe, because a lot of times it's 99% less lethal. It doesn't mean it's not lethal. It's like less lethal. It's kind of, you're gonna get hurt. And then he shot it back at him behind his back, because I think those tasers have like 2 shots. Like 2 of the pins fire out and hit you in the whatever extremity, and it creates a circuit, and it shocks you. And then there's also another a projectile in there for a second shot. So he had 1 good shot left after he shot at the cop. So the cop shot him in the back twice, and you'll see that story here in a second. Again, there's a no-win situation here. Cops probably shouldn't have shot him in the back, but they had a duty to get him off the streets, because not only did he attack the police, and again, you're not going to beat the ride to jail, but you can beat the rap. That's just the way it is. So resisting arrest, it's not good. And there's many times where I see cops doing weird crap on not DUI, but First Amendment audits, and they'll arrest some guy just filming on the street, and it's like, resist arrest. Resist arrest, but why? You're gonna lose. They got more tools on their belt to hurt you. So, and that's the thing. Is like, what was the cop supposed to do? Well, he shot him twice. I don't necessarily think that was the correct way to do it, but in the heat of the moment, you know, I don't know. It's a weird thing. So this is a story from Just the News. This video appears to show Atlanta police shooting black man after he steals police weapon. As I described before, what was going on, the Bureau of Investigation later said in a statement the victim, Rayshard Brooks, was in possession of the officer's taser during the incident. The Bureau said he later died in the hospital after surgery. Officers had reportedly been called to the scene at a Wendy's restaurant, which, by the way, burned the hell down because reasons, after Brooks was sleeping in his car in the restaurant's parking lot. Well, not necessarily, because some of the stories I've heard is that he was in the drive-through lane, and I guess there's a lot of cars in there, and he actually wasn't in the position where he could just duck out if he wanted to, if he was after he ordered. It was like right before, so people had to drive around him, and I think that's when the Wendy's people called him. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation said he failed a sobriety test prior to the fatal struggle. There you go. So, autopsy report says Rayshard Brooks was shot twice in the back. List manner of death as homicide. Yikes. Of course they're going to list it like that because they have to. Politically, they have to. They can't say, well, you know, he fought with police and he got shot and killed. But that's just the way it thinks. He was shot twice in the back, according to a release of the Fulton County, Georgia Medical Examiner's Office. Brooks died from organ damage and blood loss from 2 gunshot wounds, according to the office. The autopsy performed on Sunday lists Brooks' cause of death, gunshot wounds to the back. Manner of death is listed as homicide, which technically is true. Protesters took to the streets of Atlanta and elsewhere around the country again Sunday. In Atlanta, they gathered at the fast food restaurant where Brooks died Friday. The restaurant was torched by protesters Saturday because reasons. Because Wendy's shot him? No, it was the cops. But we got to burn something down because, again, reasons. The Fulton County District Attorney criticized the police officer's handling of Brooks' fatal shooting and said the decision on whether to bring charges could come around Wednesday, in which they will. He will be arrested and he'll be charged. But I don't think in this case, it's not like George Floyd's death, where it was obviously stupid. But in this case, there's probably some. He's not the guy who probably, in my opinion, is not going to go to jail. It can go through a long court case because they have to do it, or they expect more. The guy, they have to do it, or well, guess what happens? The city of Atlanta burns down because reasons. See, Brooks did not seem to present any kind of threat to anyone. Really? He fought 2 police officers, stole a taser, shot it at him, and was running away. I don't know. Yeah, he was running away, but he shot it like that. That's kind of weird. And so the fact that it would escalate to his death just seems unreasonable. DA Paul Howard told CNN's Frederica Whitfield on Sunday. It just seems like this is not the kind of conversation or incident that should have led to someone's death. Again, he was fighting with the cops, and I think he even punched a few of them, the two cops, and then he stole the taser, which they don't really mention that yet. That's what's interesting here, how CNN frames this. Like he was just stopped for a DUI, and then all of a sudden the cops started kicking the crap out of him, and he had to run away. But they don't mention the taser yet. Brooks, 27, was shot dead by officer Friday night at Wendy's drive-thru in the city after police moved to handcuff him for suspected driving under the influence, according to videos from the scene. The videos show that Brooks took an officer's taser during the attempted arrest and then fired at the officers as he ran away. I mean, I'm not going to say it's clear-cut, but one officer then fatally shot Brooks 3 times with a service weapon, authorities said. The killing has a rapid repercussions in Atlanta, one of many cities where protesters have been called for end of police violence and racism in the wake of police killing of George Floyd. Again, with George Floyd, we don't know if it's racism. The cop just killed him because reasons. The officer who shot Brooks was fired, and the police chief, Erica Shields, resigned as exasperated protesters have called for justice. And I guess justice is veiled as burning down Wendy's because, again, reasons. On Saturday, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms said she did not believe Brooks' death was justified use of deadly force. But, of course, a court of law will and should decide that, not some politician. While there may be a debate as to whether this was an appropriate use of deadly force, I firmly believe that there's a distinction between what you can do and what you should do, Bottoms said. Garrett Rolfe, the officer who killed Brooks, was terminated Saturday, police said, and a second officer involved in the killing, Devin Brosnan, was placed on administrative duty. Rolfe was hired in 2013 and Bronson has been with the department since 2018. Howard, the district attorney, said the possible charges could include murder, felony murder, or involuntary manslaughter. Yeah, see, if they overcharge, they're probably not going to win. So if they sort of like undercharge involuntary manslaughter, they might be able to pull that off. Specifically, the question is if Officer Rolfe, whether or not he felt that Mr. Brooks at the time presented imminent harm of death or some serious physical injury, or the alternative is whether he or not he fired the shot simply to capture him or some other reason. If that shot was fired for some reason other than to save the officer's life or prevent injury to him or others, then that shooting is not justified under the law. See, in this instance, what he described there is that the guy was running away, and the police shot him. Also, before they shot him, the guy, like I said, the Brooks, he shot that taser at the cop. Again, is that justifiable use of his service weapon to kill him? Again, we're going to have to let a court decide, obviously. Attorney for the Brooks family, L. Chris Stewart, said the officers did not have to shoot Brooks and noted that the taser is intentionally not a deadly weapon. It could be a deadly weapon. So if those pins go into your eyes and you get shocked or whatever, that could kill you. But again, they have to say that, obviously. If the officer had been a bit more empathetic and a bit less scared, we probably wouldn't have a dead client. Now, again, he resisted arrest, fighting with the cops. And we don't know if he assaulted the cops. Well, he's already resisted arrest, so that's pretty much like an assault. Still, Justin Miller, Stewart's legal partner, said Sunday any charge probably will not be murder. That's the hard thing to charge. Miller told CNN's Ana Cabrera Sunday, you just look at all the cases that were a bit clearer and you just as deadly to the client and they're not charged with murder. On city leaders taking action, Miller said it's good that people are taking steps to mitigate problems, but it's not justice. And we really don't think it could be ever justice as a man's life was taken. Children lost a father and a wife lost a husband. Now, if he didn't fight the cops and just went to jail, that's the other side of this is that yeah, none of this would have happened. But he fought, stole the taser, ran away, shot her back at the cops, and the cops used deadly force. Like I said, two things can be correct at the same time. They probably shouldn't have done it, and he probably shouldn't have resisted arrest. Should have just went and took it. But no, we got to go this way. And of course, the sob story, Brooks has 3 daughters, are 1, 2, and 8 years old. And he also has a 13-year-old stepson, according to his attorneys. Earlier today, Brooks had spent time with his oldest daughter ahead of a planned birthday party on Saturday. So there you go. You got him taking the breathalyzer, and then bam, unfortunately. So let's read what CNN says, how this incident came about. Okay. It began when police responded to a call on Friday night about a man sleeping in a car, like I said, in the Wendy's drive-thru lane, causing other customers to drive around him. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation said in a statement, when Brosnan arrives at the scene, Brooks is asleep behind the wheel in the drive-thru lane, according to his body camera video. Footage from both officers' body cameras and from their vehicles showed them speaking to Brooks for nearly 30 minutes outside Wendy's. Brooks says he does not have any weapons on him, and the officers pat him down to confirm as much as the videos show. Okay, he's got no weapons. Howard said their interaction was cordial and noted that Brooks answered the officer's question. After Brooks takes the breathalyzer test, one officer tells him to put his hands behind his back, and they move to handcuff in the video show. Brooks then resists the arrest and begins struggling with officers as they tussle on the ground for about 30 seconds. Stop fighting, an officer says, according to the audio and the body camera. During the struggle, Brooks grabs an officer's taser, escapes her grasp, and starts running away from the video shows. He's got my effing taser, said the officers, according to the body camera. footage. Surveillance video provided by the GBI, whatever it is, shows Brooks running from the officers, and he appears to point the stun gun in a direction before falling to the ground. Brooks was shot and taken to the hospital where he died. Georgia Bureau of Investigation kicked off an investigation in the incident to request that Atlanta Police Department officials said. Once the investigation is completed, the case will be turned over to the prosecutors, which they will prosecute these guys. Maybe not the other guy, because he didn't really do anything. They just tried to arrest him. Howard said Brooks' autopsy performed on Sunday. Investigators are still working to speak with other witnesses and obtain a preliminary report. And then, of course, you got to set the Wendy's on fire because reasons. Interestingly enough, at least 36 people were arrested during the protests, Atlanta spokesperson said. I was very disturbed with what happened, protester Markevian Odom told CNN. This is something that keeps happening over and over again. We've been protesting about George Floyd, and I thought this was going to be change, but there wasn't change. It's still the same old thing. Again, two things can be correct here. He didn't have to resist arrest, and possibly they didn't have to shoot him. But when you take all the evidence with all the body camera and all the video footage, it starts to paint a different picture here. So, again, I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to look at this right now. Were the cops at fault here? Yes, they murdered. They didn't. Someone say murdered. They shot him to death. Was Brooks at fault here? Where he was driving drunk, passed out at Wendy's, resisted arrest after the breathalyzer, took the taser, and started running away. So what are the cops supposed to do? Shoot him? Probably shouldn't have, but that's what happened. And finally, for some reason, Erica Shields, steps down as the Georgia, what the hell is she? Police chief, I guess. So she just quit. Why? I don't know. Says Bottoms said on Saturday that Shields remained employed by the city in another role. Oh, so she quit or resigned, but she's still going to work for the city. Okay. So there's your three stories here. And like I said, in all of this, and with everything, two things can be correct at the same time. We don't have to just stick with one narrative because we might piss off some group or some movement or some people in the Chaz and we go, how dare you? It's only one thing. You can only believe one thing and one thing only. The cops were messed up in this particular position. I don't know. Like I just read, he was talking for 30 minutes, seemed cordial, everything was cool. Once he found out he was going to jail, that's when he started resisting arrest. And then we knew what happened. But like I said, two things can always be correct at the same time, even possibly more things.